Dr. Jiwoo Park checked her reflection in the small mirror one last time, smoothing her uniform and taking a deep breath. Today wasn't just her first day at the Galactic Scientific Assembly. It was humanity's first day. As Earth's premier physicist and chosen representative, she carried the hopes of her entire species on her shoulders. "You've got this," she whispered to herself, then stepped through the gleaming doors into the grand hall. The room fell silent. Dozens of alien scientists turned to stare at her, some with multiple eyes, others with sensory organs Jiwoo couldn't even identify. They were a rainbow of colors and shapes, from the tall, willowy Lorens to the squat, six-limbed Podi. What they all shared was an expression Jiwoo was beginning to recognize across species, curiosity mixed with unease. "Welcome, Human Park," announced Tile, the blue-skinned head scientist who had greeted her ship upon arrival. "Please join us for orientation. We were just discussing standard laboratory protocols." Jiwoo nodded politely and took an empty seat at the curved table. The material felt strange beneath her, slightly yielding like sitting on firm jelly. She placed her datapad and stylus in front of her and tried to focus on Tile's presentation about emergency procedures rather than the constant sidelong glances from her new colleagues. "And now," Tile continued, "perhaps our Earth representative would like to introduce herself." Jiwoo stood, feeling the subtle difference in gravity, about 0.8 of Earth's pull, according to her briefing. "Thank you for welcoming me. I'm Dr. Jiwoo Park, specializing in quantum gravity and applied physics at Earth's Global Science Institute. I'm honored to—" The stylus she'd placed at the edge of her datapad chose that moment to roll off the table. Without thinking, Jiwoo's hand shot out and caught it before it hit the floor. The room erupted in gasps. One small purple alien actually fell off their chair. "Is something wrong?" Jiwoo asked, looking around in confusion. Tail approached slowly. "You caught that without looking at that speed?" Jiwoo blinked. It was just falling. Normal gravity. Response. "Perhaps," said a rust-colored alien with 4 arms. "The human doesn't realize. In most of our worlds, objects fall much slower. Your reflexes and prediction of the falling object's path are unexpected. Would you mind demonstrating?" "That again?" asked Tail, now holding a recording device. Feeling awkward but willing to cooperate, Jiwoo picked up her stylus and dropped it, catching it easily. She did it a few more times, then, warming to her audience's fascination, began tossing it up and catching it behind her back, then while turning in a circle. "This is basic hand-eye coordination," she explained. "On Earth, we play games with much faster objects." An excited murmur spread through the room. The rust-colored scientist approached with what looked like a metallic ball. "Would you try with this?" they asked. "It's a standard mass we use for calibration." Jiwoo took the ball, surprised by how light it felt. She tossed it up, noting how slowly it seemed to rise and fall compared to what she'd expect. She caught it easily. "Remarkable," whispered Tael. "And you understand the mathematics behind this motion?" "Of course," Jiwoo said, puzzled by the question. "It's just basic Newtonian physics. F-yamrima, the acceleration due to gravity, the mass of the object." She trailed off as she noticed several aliens frantically taking notes, while others huddled around what appeared to be a calculating device. "Our equations don't match your observed results," said a slender, gray-skinned scientist. "The object should take 2.3 times longer to fall based on our standard models." Jiwoo frowned. "Your models don't account for different gravitational fields?" The room went completely silent. "Perhaps," Tal said carefully, "you could show us these calculations." Jiwoo found herself at a floating whiteboard, writing out simple physics equations she'd learned in high school. With each formula, the alien scientist became more agitated, conferring in hushed tones and comparing her work to their own devices. "This is impossible," one finally said. "These equations suggest you could predict complex trajectories with nothing but these simple formulas." "Well, yes," Jiwoo said. "That's how we landed on our moon over a century ago, before computers even." The statement seemed to shock them even more. Tyle stepped forward, eyes wide. Human Park, I believe we need to convene a special symposium. Your understanding of what you call basic physics appears to defy what our collected species have understood as natural law for millennia. As Jiwoo looked around at the stunned faces, she realized that her simple demonstration had just changed everything. She wasn't just representing Earth anymore. She was challenging the foundations of galactic science. I'd be happy to share what I know, she said with a smile. Though where I come from, this is literally child's play. As she left the orientation room, flanked by fascinated scientists peppering her with questions, Jiwoo couldn't help but wonder, if they were this shocked by her catching a falling stylus, how would they react to everything else humans took for granted? The symposium hall buzzed with excitement as creatures from across the galaxy filed in. Jiwoo couldn't help but notice how they moved, carefully, deliberately, as if the room's gravity might suddenly increase. She'd spent the night researching the home planets of the various species present. Most evolved in environments with gravity ranging from 0.3 to 0.6 of Earth's pull. We will begin with the human demonstration, announced Tale, his voice amplified, through the chamber. Dr. Park has prepared what she calls basic physics experiments from her world. Jiwoo stepped onto the central platform where she'd set up her materials. String, weights, springs, and a few metal balls. Nothing fancy, just the kind of demonstration kit used in high school classrooms back home. I thought we'd start with something simple, she said, holding up a pendulum she'd constructed. This is a basic harmonic oscillator, or what we call a pendulum. It demonstrates periodic motion under the influence of gravity. She released the weight, and the pendulum swung back and forth at what seemed to her a perfectly normal rate. The audience gasped collectively. Several recording devices floated closer. That's impossible, said a tentacled scientist in the front row. The oscillation rate is far too rapid for the apparent mass. Jiwoo frowned. It's moving exactly as it should. The period of a pendulum depends on its length and the gravitational constant. In this gravity, which is about 0.8 of Earth's, I'd expect it to swing slightly slower than I'm used to. Slower? The word rippled through the crowd. You're saying on Earth this would move even faster? Jiwoo nodded, making a quick calculation. About 11% faster, yes. A small delegation of scientists huddled around a hovering computer terminal, inputting data and shaking their heads. Our equations cannot account for this behavior, said Noor, a scientist with iridescent scales who had been particularly skeptical since Jiwoo's arrival. Unless, are you manipulating the pendulum somehow? Perhaps your species has telekinetic abilities? Jiwoo couldn't help but laugh. No, nothing like that. This is just physics, the same physics that governs everything. Here, let me show you something else. She picked up two metal balls, one large, one small. In a vacuum, regardless of their mass, these would fall at exactly the same rate. Galileo demonstrated this concept on Earth over 600 years ago. Impossible, Noor interrupted. The larger mass would clearly fall faster due to its gravitational potential. That's not how gravity works, Jiwoo said gently. The acceleration due to gravity is constant for all masses. The force is greater on larger masses, yes, but the acceleration remains the same because of the proportional increase in inertia. She dropped both balls simultaneously. They hit the floor at the same moment with a satisfying clunk. The room erupted in chaotic discussion. Some aliens were frantically taking notes, others arguing loudly in languages her translator couldn't keep up with. One group in the back appeared to be praying. Please, Tale raised his hands for quiet. Dr. Park, you must understand our confusion. What you're demonstrating contradicts principles our scientists have relied on for millennia. Our ships, our buildings, our very understanding of the universe is built on different models. Different, but clearly incomplete, said a younger alien, scientist who had pushed to the front. The humans' demonstrations match observed phenomena that our equations have always struggled to explain. Jiwoo realized she needed to make this more relatable. Look, on Earth, we live with crushing gravity every day. Our children learn to walk under conditions that would flatten many of your species. We've had to understand these forces precisely because they're so powerful in our environment. How do you survive? Asked a small, gelatinous being who had been silent until now. One Earth gravity would compress my body to half its size. We evolved there, Jiwoo explained. Our bones are dense, our muscles strong. What feels normal, to me, would be exhausting for many of you. But that's what makes this exchange so valuable. We've developed different understandings based on our environments. Noor moved to the center of the room, their scales flashing with what Jiwoo had learned indicated agitation. I propose an alternative explanation, they announced. The human is using technology or abilities we cannot detect. These demonstrations violate fundamental principles. No species can simply understand physics better than civilizations with 1,000,000 years of scientific advancement. The room divided quickly, younger scientists crowding around Jiwoo's demonstration table, older ones gathering behind Noor. Jiwoo caught fragments of heated discussions. Could revolutionize our understanding, dangerous to accept without proof? What else do they know that we don't? Jiwoo held up another device, a simple spring with a weight attached. This is called a spring mass system. It's taught to our teenagers. The mathematics describing its motion are fundamental to understanding everything from sound waves to quantum mechanics. She set the spring in motion, watching as the alien's eyes widened at its rapid oscillation. The pattern is predictable, measurable, and consistent, she explained. No magic, no technology, just observation and mathematics. A young alien with delicate fronds extending from its head approached cautiously. Would you teach me these equations, the ones your teenagers learn? Of course, Jiwoo smiled. This is outrageous, Noor interrupted. You would have us believe that humans, barely spacefaring from a hostile planet, somehow understand the universe better than the combined knowledge of the Galactic Assembly? Jiwoo shook her head. Not better, differently. We understand high-gravity physics because we live it. You understand other aspects of science that would amaze me. But refusing to consider new information isn't science. It's dogma. The word hung in the air as Tail stepped between them. Perhaps, he said carefully, what we need is a test, a way to determine whether the human's understanding represents a genuine advancement in knowledge or something else. I welcome any test, Jiwoo said confidently. Science is about evidence, not authority. As the first day's session ended, Jiwoo noticed something interesting. Several younger aliens slipping her notes, requesting private discussions about Earth physics. The division was clear. Those eager to learn versus those determined to defend the old ways. Walking back to her quarters, Jiwoo wondered what she had started. She had come to learn from advanced civilizations, only to find that her basic knowledge might be revolutionary. The universe, it seemed, was full of surprises. For everyone. The third day of the symposium had drawn an even larger crowd. Jiwoo arrived early to find a line of aliens waiting outside the chamber doors. Some nodded respectfully as she passed, while others whispered to each other, their body language suggesting suspicion. The division that had begun yesterday had only grown stronger overnight. Inside, the central platform had been transformed. Where Jiwoo's simple demonstration table had stood, there now loomed an impressive array of holographic projectors, complex measuring devices, and what appeared to be a miniature gravity manipulation chamber. Noor stood proudly beside the equipment, scales gleaming under the room's bright lights. A small team of senior scientists worked behind them, calibrating instruments and checking readings. Today, announced Tail as the chamber filled, we will hear the perspective of our esteemed colleague, Chief Physicist Noor, who has prepared a comprehensive analysis of yesterday's unusual demonstrations. Jiwoo took a seat in the front row, curious rather than worried. Science thrived on challenge and debate. This was how progress happened. Distinguished members of the assembly, Noor began, voice carrying a harmonic undertone that Jiwoo's translator rendered as supreme confidence. Yesterday, we witnessed phenomena that appeared to contradict our unified gravitational theories that have guided interstellar travel for over 4,000 years. The holographic display activated, showing complex equations that swirled and transformed. Our mathematical models have successfully predicted celestial mechanics across 17 galaxies, continued Noor. They have enabled the construction of gravity wave communicators, planetary engineering, and stellar stabilization. These are not merely theories but proven tools that built our civilization. Jiwoo watched with genuine interest. The mathematics were beautiful, if unfamiliar in their notation. The human demonstrations yesterday seemed to suggest our models are flawed, Noor said, glancing at Jiwoo. A bold claim from a species that achieved spaceflight just 70 years ago. Today, I will demonstrate that there is no contradiction, merely a misunderstanding of what we observed. With a flourish, Noor activated the gravity chamber. Inside, objects of various sizes and compositions floated, then began to fall at different rates. You see? In controlled conditions, objects fall precisely as our equations predict. The larger masses accelerate faster due to their greater gravitational potential. The audience murmured as data streams appeared beside the falling objects, showing their acceleration rates. Then how do you explain what I demonstrated yesterday? Jiwoo asked politely. I'm coming to that, said Noor with what Jiwoo interpreted as a smile. There are three possibilities. First, human perceptual abilities differ from ours, creating an illusion of simultaneous impact. Second, Earth's unique electromagnetic field creates anomalous effects not present elsewhere. Or third, Noor paused dramatically, humans possess subtle telekinetic abilities, perhaps unconsciously, that manipulate objects around them. A ripple of excitement passed through the crowd. Jiwoo couldn't help but laugh. That's quite a leap, she said. Wouldn't the simplest explanation be that your model needs refinement to account for high-gravity environments? Our models work perfectly in all known environments, countered Noor. They successfully predict the motion of stars and planets. Are you suggesting that the laws of physics themselves change on your world? Not at all, Jiwoo replied. I'm suggesting that your understanding of those laws might be incomplete. The tension in the room was palpable. Jiwoo stood and approached the gravity chamber. May I? She asked. Noor hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Jiwoo examined the chamber controls, quickly understanding their function. This is generating an artificial gravitational field, correct? Yes, calibrated to standard galactic units. And your sensors are measuring acceleration rates of the test objects? Precisely. Jiwoo studied the readings, then smiled. I see the issue. Your chamber is generating a gradient field, not a uniform one. That's why your objects fall at different rates. They're experiencing different gravitational forces based on their position in the chamber. That's absurd, Noor said. The field is perfectly calibrated. Let me prove it, Jiwoo said. She took a stylus from her pocket and a small piece of paper. On it, she quickly sketched a diagram and wrote several equations. If I'm right, then these formulas will predict exactly how your objects will fall in various positions in the chamber. She handed the paper to Tal. Test it. Change the positions of the objects without telling me, and see if my predictions match your observations. Tal studied the equations with growing amazement. These are remarkably simple. That's the beauty of physics, Jiwoo said. The fundamental principles often are. What followed was 2 hours of intensive testing. Each time, Jiwoo's simple Newtonian equations perfectly predicted the behavior of objects in the chamber, regardless of how Noor and the other scientists adjusted the parameters. This is impossible, Noor finally said. Scales now a dull gray. These equations don't account for quantum fluctuations or gravitational harmonics. They're too primitive. Yet they work, said a young scientist named Lim, who had been silently observing from the side. I've verified the predictions 10 times now. The human's mathematics perfectly describes the motion we observe. Another scientist stepped forward. I've been running simulations based on the human's equations applied to star systems. They match our observational data better than our current models, especially in high-gravity environments. The room grew louder as more scientists began to speak at once, some defending the traditional models, others excitedly discussing the implications of what they were witnessing. Jiwoo raised her hand for quiet. Look, I'm not here to upend your science. What I'm showing you isn't revolutionary on Earth, it's taught to children. But maybe that's the point. We evolved on a world where these forces are powerful and obvious. We had to understand them to survive. She walked to the holographic display, and with Tail's permission, adjusted it to show Earth. Our world has nearly 3 times the gravity of the average homeworld represented here. We build skyscrapers that must withstand not just gravity, but earthquakes and hurricanes. We've engineered machines to fly through our dense atmosphere. Every day we fight against forces that would crush many of your species. Is it so surprising that we might have insights into those forces? A thoughtful silence fell over the room. I propose something, Jiwoo continued. Let's not think of this as human physics versus galactic physics. Let's see if we can create an integrated model that works across all environments. Lim stepped forward. I would like to learn these Earth equations. They may help with my research into dense stellar objects. One by one, other young scientists joined Lim, until nearly half the room had moved toward Jiwoo. Nor watched with dismay as their carefully constructed presentation crumbled in the face of simple mathematics and observable results. This isn't over, they said quietly. There are implications here beyond science. If humans truly understand forces this fundamental better than we do, what else might they know that we don't? As the session broke up into excited discussion groups, Jiwoo couldn't help but wonder the same thing herself. Word spread quickly through the Galactic Scientific Assembly about the human who broke physics. By the 4th day, the symposium had been moved to the grand amphitheater to accommodate the growing crowd. Scientists from distant stations had arrived on emergency transport, desperate to witness the controversial demonstrations firsthand. Even more surprising to Jiwoo was the arrival of non-scientists, diplomatic representatives and cultural observers from various worlds. I didn't expect to cause such a stir, Jiwoo told Lim as they prepared the day's demonstrations. The young alien had quickly become her most enthusiastic student, staying up late discussing Earth physics and helping adapt the presentations for the larger audience. You've done more than cause a stir, Lim replied, adjusting a holographic display. You've started a scientific revolution, and not everyone is happy about it. Jiwoo had noticed the increased security around the amphitheater. Tal had apologized, for at that morning explaining it was merely a precaution. As they worked, a delegation of formally dressed aliens entered through a side door. Unlike the scientists with their practical clothing and tool belts, these wore elaborate robes and insignia of office. The Diplomatic Council, Lim whispered. They never attend scientific symposiums. This is unprecedented. Tail hurried over, looking nervous. Dr. Park, may I present first speaker Ven of the Galactic Council? They have requested a private conversation before today's session. Jiwoo straightened up, trying to recall her diplomatic briefing. The first speaker was essentially the elected leader of the United Galactic Species, something like a president or prime minister for the entire cooperative. I'm honored, she said, bowing slightly as she'd been told was appropriate. First, Speaker Ven was tall and willowy, with 6-fingered hands and skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. They regarded Jiwoo with eyes that changed color as they spoke. Dr. Park, your demonstrations have created quite a situation, Ven said, their voice melodious but with an edge of concern. We've received inquiries from 23 worlds about the implications of your physics. I'm just sharing basic knowledge, Jiwoo replied. I didn't realize it would be so controversial. Knowledge is never just knowledge, said Ven, gesturing for Jiwoo to walk with them around the perimeter of the amphitheater. What you've shown challenges more than scientific theories. It challenges assumptions about species capability and development. As they walked, Ven explained the delicate balance of the galactic community. Technology sharing was carefully managed, with species deemed to have reached appropriate developmental thresholds given access to more advanced sciences. We believed humans were still centuries from understanding certain principles, Ven admitted. Yet here you are, casually demonstrating knowledge that contradicts this assessment. It raises questions. Like what? Jiwoo asked. Like whether we've underestimated humanity in other areas as well, said Ven. Our xenobiologists have been reviewing your species records. Your resistance to radiation is remarkable. Your temperature tolerances exceed those of any other known intelligent species. You can survive atmospheric pressure variations that would kill most beings. And now we learn you understand fundamental forces better than our most advanced scientists. Ji-woo hadn't thought about it this way. We're just adapted to our environment like any species. An environment that would kill 96% of known sentient beings, Ven pointed out. Some council members are concerned about what this means for the future. Before Ji-woo could respond, an alarm began blaring through the amphitheater. Red lights flashed along the walls and a computerized voice announced something in a language her translator couldn't process. "What's happening?" she asked, noticing the panic spreading among the gathered aliens. Tael rushed over. "Gravity generator. Malfunction in the central core. The stabilizers are failing. We need to evacuate immediately." Ji-woo felt it then. A subtle shift in the floor beneath her feet. The artificial gravity was fluctuating. "How bad could it get?" she asked. "If the containment fails completely, the gravity could spike to 2.3 standard units before the emergency." "Systems activate," Tal said, already ushering people toward the exits. "Many species here couldn't survive that for more than a few minutes. Their internal organs would be damaged." Ji-woo did the quick conversion in her head. 2.3 standard units would be about 1.84 Earth gravities. Uncomfortable, but entirely survivable. For her, "I can help," she said. "I can function in that gravity level. What needs to be done?" Tael looked at her in shock. "The manual override requires physically reaching the core control room, but no one can move effectively if gravity increases. To those levels, I can," Ji-woo insisted. "Just tell me what to do when I get there." First speaker Ven, who had been coordinating the evacuation, turned to them with changing eyes. "You would risk yourself for us?" "Of course," Ji-woo said, already removing her formal jacket to move more freely. "It's just physics, remember? I know exactly what I'm dealing with." Lim stepped forward. "I'll guide her through the comm system. I've been studying the station schematics." The next 10 minutes were a blur of activity. As most beings evacuated to safety, Ji-woo, Tael, and a small team of engineers made their way toward the station's core. With each section they passed through, the gravity increased noticeably. "The containment field is deteriorating faster than expected," said one engineer, struggling to move as the gravity reached 1.4 standard units. "We're seeing spikes of 1.7 already." For the aliens, each step became a massive effort. Their bodies weren't designed for this crushing force, but Ji-woo, while feeling the increased weight, moved with determined efficiency. "The rest of you should turn back," she said, seeing their distress. "Just give me clear instructions for the override sequence." "I can't authorize that," Tael began, but then stumbled as the gravity surged again. His breath came in labored gasps. "You don't have a choice," Ji-woo said gently. "This is literally what humans are built for, trust me." After a brief argument, they relented, giving Ji-woo the access codes and detailed instructions. Lim remained on comms, guiding her through the maze-like corridors toward the core. The gravity continued to increase as she approached the center of the station. At what her body recognized as about 1.6 Earth gravities, Ji-woo felt the strain, but pressed forward. The corridors were empty now. No one else could function in these conditions. "Almost there," Lim's voice crackled through the comm. "One more section, but Ji-woo, readings show gravity at the core is already at 2.1 standard units and rising." "That's about 1.7 Earth gravity," she replied. "I can handle it." When she finally reached the control room, the force pressing down on her was significant. Each movement required conscious effort, but compared to the specialized high-gravity training she'd undergone for space missions, it was manageable. The control panel was complex, but with Lim's guidance, she navigated to the critical systems. Her fingers felt heavy as she input the override codes, fighting against the increasing gravitational pull. "The system is resisting the manual override," Lim reported anxiously. "Something's wrong with the calibration sequence." Ji-woo stared at the error messages flashing across the screen. Then it hit her. They were using their standard gravitational equations, which she now knew were incomplete for high-gravity environments. I need to recalculate the calibration parameters, she said, reaching for the stylus and small notepad she always carried. Their formulas won't work under these conditions. As sweat beaded on her forehead from the exertion, Jiwoo quickly worked through the equations she'd been demonstrating all week, the simple, elegant physics that described gravity's true behavior. With Lim's help, she entered the new parameters into the system. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the gravity began to subside, returning gradually to normal levels. You did it. Lim's voice was jubilant. The containment field is stabilizing. When Jiwoo emerged from the core 40 minutes later, she found a welcoming committee of astonished aliens waiting for her. First speaker Ven stepped forward. Dr. Park, you've saved hundreds of lives today, they said, their eyes now a deep blue that Jiwoo had never seen before, and proven your point more effectively than any demonstration could have. What point is that? Jiwoo asked, exhausted but satisfied. That understanding the true nature of physical laws isn't just academic, said Ven. It's sometimes the difference between life and death. Behind them, Noor stood with a group of senior scientists, their scales now a subdued purple that Jiwoo had learned indicated deep thought, and perhaps a change of mind. 6 months had passed since the gravity generator crisis, and the Galactic Scientific Assembly looked nothing like it had before. The once formal, almost sterile research facility now buzzed with energy as mixed teams of humans and aliens worked side by side. Jiwoo smiled as she walked through the main laboratory complex, watching a human physicist demonstrating centrifugal force principles to an enthusiastic group of young alien scientists. They're like sponges, said Juan, the physicist, when he spotted Jiwoo. They grasp concepts so quickly once they get past their old assumptions. And we're learning just as much from them, Jiwoo replied. It was true. While Earth physics had revolutionized galactic understanding of gravitational and mechanical forces, alien scientists had opened human eyes to quantum principles and energy manipulation techniques that would have taken Earth centuries to discover independently. Jiwoo continued to her office, a spacious room with one wall made entirely of transparent material that looked out into the swirling nebula beyond the station. The view still took her breath away. On her desk sat a small trophy, a piece of metal recovered from the gravity core, mounted on a stand with an inscription in 17 languages that roughly translated to, "For thinking clearly under pressure." Lim entered without knocking, as had become their habit. In these 6 months, the young alien scientist had become Jiwoo's closest friend and collaborator. The new ship designs passed all the stress tests, Lim announced excitedly, placing a data tablet on Jiwoo's desk. 300% more efficient than our previous models and capable of withstanding gravitational forces that would have crushed the old fleet. Jiwoo scrolled through the results with satisfaction. The integration of human mechanical, engineering principles with alien energy technology had created vessels unlike anything either civilization had developed alone. The Council has approved mass production, Lim continued. They're calling it the Unity class. Fitting, Jiwoo said, though I still can't believe how quickly everything has changed. And change it had. After the gravity core incident, first speaker Ven had made a controversial decision: to invite a substantial delegation of human scientists to join the assembly. The announcement had caused an uproar among conservative factions, but the practical benefits quickly became apparent. When 3 alien worlds faced natural disasters in quick succession, a tsunami on aquatic Neridian, earthquakes on rocky Voss, and atmospheric disruption on gaseous Thule, human-designed equipment functioned flawlessly in conditions previously thought impossible to work in. Thousands of lives were saved, and opposition to human integration fell silent. Did you see today's education report? Lim asked, pulling up another file. The new combined physics curriculum has been implemented in 62 world's university systems. Students are solving problems that stumped our greatest minds just months ago. Jiwoo nodded, remembering her own journey. Any word from Noor? Lim's skin shifted to a color Jiwoo had come to recognize as amused. Still reviewing the data on the outer rim. But rumor has it, they've requested all your published papers from Earth. Progress, Ji-woo laughed. The once skeptical scientist had never formally acknowledged the validity of human physics, but their gradual shift from opposition to quiet study spoke volumes. A soft chime interrupted their conversation, a reminder of the day's main event. The annual assembly was beginning, marking 1 year since Ji-woo had first arrived at the station. "We should get going," she said, standing and straightening her uniform, now a blend of Earth design with touches of galactic fashion. The new delegates will be arriving soon. They walked together to the grand amphitheater, now modified with various gravity settings to accommodate the physiological needs of different species. Where once there had been rigid separation between scientific disciplines, now the room was arranged in mixed clusters focused on collaborative projects. First speaker. Ven stood at the center of the stage, their ceremonial robes catching the light from the station's artificial sun. "1 year ago," they began, "we witnessed what many thought impossible, a fundamental challenge to our understanding of the universe. Some feared this challenge, others embraced it. Today, we celebrate the fruits of that integration." Holographic displays activated around the amphitheater, showing the new technologies, the successful rescue missions, the advancements in medicine and energy production that the collaboration had produced. "And now," Ven continued, "we welcome the second wave of Earth scientists who will join our community." The main doors opened, and Ji-woo felt a surge of emotion as dozens of humans entered. Physicists, engineers, biologists, chemists, each looking around with the same wide-eyed wonder she had felt a year ago. Among them, she spotted familiar faces from Earth's top research institutions. Dr. Kang, the quantum physicist whose theories she had studied as a student. Dr. Yoon, whose work on material sciences had revolutionized construction techniques. Each represented the best of human scientific knowledge, now coming to share and learn. "They look so small," whispered an alien diplomat behind her. "Hard to believe they come from a world that would crush most of us." "Size isn't everything," Ji-woo replied with a smile. "Sometimes the greatest strength comes from adaptation to challenge." After the ceremony, Ji-woo found herself surrounded by the new arrivals, all eager to hear about her experiences. She answered their questions patiently, remembering her own confusion and excitement a year earlier. "Is it true that their mathematical models had to be completely revised?" asked Dr. Yoon. "Not completely," Ji-woo said. "More like expanded. They had developed elegant solutions for low-gravity environments, but had gaps in understanding high-pressure physics. We had the opposite problem, advanced mechanical understanding but gaps in quantum theory. Together, we're filling in each other's blind spots." As the reception continued, Ji-woo noticed a small alien child watching from the sidelines. The youngster was working on what appeared to be physics problems on a handheld device. Curious, Ji-woo excused herself and walked over. "Complicated homework?" she asked, kneeling down to the child's level. The child looked up, multifaceted eyes blinking with surprise at being addressed by the famous human scientist. "It's orbital mechanics," they said. "We have to calculate the gravitational interactions of a three-body system." Ji-woo glanced at the screen and felt a surge of pride. The equations the child was working with were an elegant blend of traditional galactic notation with the fundamental principles she had introduced. "You're doing well," she said. "That's a difficult problem." "It's not so hard," the child replied with a shrug. "My teacher says that if we understand the basic principles, we can solve any problem." Ji-woo couldn't help but smile. 6 months ago, those basic principles had shocked the greatest minds of the Galactic Assembly. Now, they were being taught to children. Across the room, she caught Tail's eye. The head scientist raised his drink in a silent toast. He had been among the first to embrace the integration, despite his initial shock. Later, standing at the observation window watching transport ships arrive with more human scientists and equipment, Ji-woo reflected on how far they'd come. What had begun as a simple demonstration of falling objects had cascaded into a transformation of galactic science. Dr. Park called Lim from the doorway. "The new integrated research team is ready for your inspection." Ji-woo turned from the window, ready to face whatever new challenges awaited. The universe was vast and mysterious, but working together, There was nothing they couldn't understand. One law of physics at a time.